over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had a lot of depression because it's just like, what was the point of all this? I didn't have any purpose and it just disappeared.
So, Rebecca, how did you find carnivore?
Well, it's kind of a long story. I started, gosh, I guess the shortest route for me starting finding carnivore was that I found Dr. Berry's book, Lies That Doctors Told Me, and I found Wheat Belly, and I found Grain Brain, and then to barrel that a little further, I also found Sally Fallon. Have you heard of her? No? Okay. Sally Fallon is she handles the Weston Price Foundation, and he's the gentleman who traveled all over the country or the different countries, realizing that our diet, the way it is, isn't working, and people were much healthier on a mostly carnivore diet. So that barreled into me finding Alan Savory, and I don't know if you've heard of him either. He's doing regenerative farming. And so he's showing that like most of the desertification in the world is because we took all the cows off the pasture and started growing grain to feed the cows, to make them sick, to make us sick, to make everybody sick. And then all the vegans are going, hey, let's eat the grains too, because we think we're cows. So everybody's barreling into this big pile of sick. And not only do we heal, but the whole world would heal if we would just put the cows back where they belong, on the pastures, then in our mouths. And just, I mean, everything would just equalize. So what happened was I also gained a whole bunch of weight after my last baby, which I have four babies or four children now, and they're all 4 years apart. And I've gained exuberant amounts of weight every single time I've been pregnant, because my autoimmune will kick back in whenever I'm pregnant. But I've been keeping my autoimmune down with other knowledge of diets throughout my life. And so, but when the pregnancy comes in, something about it, I just can't behave. I only was able to behave with one pregnancy. I gained a whole bunch of weight with my last one. I have she's going to be 5 in May. And so I was like, after Christmas, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I want to do something that works more with Alan Savory's ideals, Sally Fallon's ideals, Weston Price's ideals. And so I was like, and I always try to find like the highest nutrition and the highest protein in my diets when I try to lose weight, and it always works. And so this time I was like, heck, I think I've seen people saying they were full carnivore. That's got to be the best. That's going to be the highest calorie for the lowest calorie for your bang. So that's what I did. I started looking that up, and I started doing it. Now my husband's doing it. We both lost over 10 pounds this month. And yeah, so that's how I ended up there. It was almost like a vegan approach because I wanted to save the world, but it just happens to save us at the same time. So
Nice. So, when did you get started?
I officially like wiped the slate clean February 26th of this. So 32 days ago, I guess it's been
So
that I
you said you'd lost 11 pounds already.
yeah, yep. And
Wow.
I was doing grain free and sugar free from Christmas. So I was doing grain free and sugar free. I make these little cakes for my kids so I can get a whole egg into them and a whole tablespoon of butter into them. And it's this little cake, and it's made with cassava flour. And so you just, put the egg in the butter and the Splenda and that kind of stuff. And so then they have this cute little cake. And that way I'm tricking them into eating an egg and some butter. So I've been sending those in my son's lunch and stuff like that. So I was eating those too up until the 26th, and I lost 10 pounds, doing no grain, no sugar. And I hate vegetables anyways, so I didn't have to quit those. So I did have to, since the carnivore does lay off the fruit, I am laying off the fruit right now. Um, Paul Saladino, blah, blah, blah fruit. I don't really know how I feel about that yet, but we'll see down the road.
So, who was the driving force in this? Was it you or your husband? Like, did you convince him or he convinced you?
Well, it was me, but I didn't have to do much convincing because he was ready for a change too. So I said, I'm going to do this. And he said, so am I. There wasn't any like, and I think honestly, because both of our backgrounds, since I hate vegetables, my whole childhood, oh, you got to eat your vegetables. You got to eat your vegetables. And I'm like, now that I think about it, I think that that just ruined my ability to even trust my gut instincts at all because it's like, okay, I put a broccoli in my mouth, or a Brussels sprout in my mouth, I almost throw up, I get in trouble, right? So now I don't even trust my gut instincts anymore. Um, but so my husband's the same way. He never really liked vegetables that much. He would go to the buffet and like pile his plate up with the free bacon and then put the nacho cheese on it. And his family would be like, you're going to have a heart attack. So I really think that those are like driving forces that he was like, yeah, I'm doing it too, because he just wants to be like, see, all the stuff that I've been eating all these years is fine. You guys are crazy. So I think we're both there.
Because you were kind of doing no grain, no sugar beforehand, does that mean that as you've gone into carnivore, you haven't really suffered from any keto flu or anything like that?
No, I not, and I when I tried keto, I didn't suffer with keto flu either. Because I was already like, I have no oxalate dumping or anything like that because I already didn't really like it. And one of my biggest like breakthroughs and diet in my lifetime was going gluten free. Because before I went gluten free, the doctor told me I was infertile. So, and I had migraines every single day from the time I was like 9 until I was 27 or 28. And my mom started doing Atkins, and she said, and then so she researched a little bit about gluten, and she said, Becky, you really need to try gluten free. This all sounds like you. So I did. And so my biggest breakthrough started with gluten free. But, then they start marketing products, this is gluten free, that's gluten free, everything's gluten free. So then you start eating the grains again and you start eating the sugars again. Whereas before, when you first start gluten free, especially if you hate vegetables, you're carnivore. So when you first do it, you're like, ah, and then the next thing you know, you're falling apart because the food industry gets a hold of that and they start marketing crap to you, and then there you are in a pile of crap again, basically.
Yeah. So, since you've been full carnivore, in these last 30 odd days, um, have you noticed any other changes, besides the weight loss?
Primarily, and of course now I stutter and stop and have to think, but my brain just did this like complete clear thing. Even if I wasn't losing weight, even if I didn't, like, all my joint pains gone. When my feet would hurt really bad at the end of the day. I'm on my feet from 4 in the morning until almost 8 at night. Because I get up, go to work, then I come home, I get my sons to school, and then I take care of my toddler. Then I get my husband's lunch packed and get him to work, and then the kids start coming back home. So I'm on my feet all day long, and my feet would hurt so bad, and now they don't bother me at all. My joint pain is basically gone. I heard you say, I think, you just posted a video the 28th where you said that you had tried milk and it actually lowered your LDL, or you put cheese back. Is
Yeah,
that?
with cheese.
Mhm.
But, I think it was the additives to the cheese that did it, not the cheese.
Okay, because I've been drinking milk, and so I still have like a little bit of like joint pain and things like that. But I also noticed that milk has the same micronutrients in it that the element has. So yeah, yeah, it does. It has the same micronutrients as the element, and it doesn't, and it's actually has a little bit more. than the element has. And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm not sure if I'm going to take milk out or not. I might take it out while I continue, taking the weight down, and then I might pop it back in. But I was doing milk up until like 2 days ago. And so I am wondering if that also might have been part of why I didn't have keto flu symptoms and things like that. Because I didn't take Element, but I did just find out. And milk also has iodine in it. And Elizabeth Bright talks a lot about iodine. So,
Yeah. It's amazing. It's always amazing to me just to hear from so many people like yourself. You just change what you eat, and so many things can change for you.
hmm yeah, it's,
And even talking about the gluten before, you take the gluten out and, you know, things change, fertility-wise, the headaches go away.
hmm yeah, it's funny because like take gluten out and then there's four more lives, that would have never been if I hadn't, tried that. But yeah, it's incredible. My husband, he's lessening his anxiety, he's having less depression, and my depression has completely vanished. I had been, I'm coming up on my 50th birthday this year, and so that was another reason why I wanted to do something, a huge change to like go into the next stage um for my wellness. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had a lot of depression because it's just like, what was the point of all this? I didn't have any purpose, and it just disappeared. And it's like I don't even seek purpose anymore. Like before, it's like, what is the meaning? It's like, I don't know, you turn back into the apex predator and you just don't even care what the meaning is. It's like, who cares? I'm the boss. You don't care because you're now the apex predator again. You feel on the top of the food chain where, I mean, I know people hate it when you say that, but that's where we belong and that's where I feel best personally.
Nice. And when you were suffering with depression, did you have to take any, like, SSRIs or anything like that?
I won't go to a doctor. I haven't gone to a doctor except for like if a job sends me to get physical. I haven't gone to a doctor in decades. I just won't go. My chiropractor actually was like, "Oh, this is interesting," because I told him I was doing the carnivore. He's like, "So, what do you think's going to happen to your triglycerides?" And I was like, "I have nothing to compare them with. I haven't been to a doctor for 20 years, so I guess I don't care what happens to my triglycerides. I hope my cholesterol is 300. It should be there anyways. That's what Sally Fallon says." Like Sally Fallon says, if you're a woman going into menopause and your cholesterol isn't around 300, you're going to have a horrible time. Like she didn't say that exactly, but that's what she implied in one of her speeches is that a woman's cholesterol should be around 300. It should never be touched.
Yeah, I think we've gone down the road way too far of using drugs to change too many things in our body, and eating the wrong foods that change too many things hormonally, and it's just messed us all up.
I will admit, however, that I live in Michigan, and here in Michigan, THC is legal. So that is why I put on so much weight. I was trying to combat my depression with the THC. So that's why the weight stacked on.
So that gives you the munchies or something.
Oh, yes. Real bad for me, like real bad. And then on top of that, I've been a baker my whole life. So creativity goes out the window and you can find anything in an empty kitchen when you have the munchies and creativity. So that really messes things up.
Got it. It's great that you and your husband are doing this together because, just the fact you can both support each other is awesome. Um, how are you both eating day to day?
David is doing a large breakfast. So he getting bacon and sausage and eggs, and he's still putting cheese on his eggs. And then he's doing oatmeal. So he's just eating that big breakfast, and that's all he's having. Big pile of everything. And so he's losing, like I said, I think he's lost about 14 pounds now. And when I come home from work, I have a hamburger patty, and then I go about my day. And then around 1 o'clock, I have another hamburger patty. And that this was factored in when I was drinking the milk too, still in my coffees. So now today, since I finally was like, okay, no more of that, I'll probably have just a third hamburger patty because that's just where I'm at right now. I'm trying to reduce. So I'm having about 12 ounces of ground beef, and David's having a large OMED, but I'm spacing mine out throughout the day.
Nice. And so did it take David a long time to get used to doing the OMAD, or was he pretty good straight away with that?
He seemed like I sent him a lunch with it. He works second shift. So I sent him a dinner um about a week. And then at the end of at the beginning of the second week, he's like, I don't want the dinner anymore. So so about a week and a half before he realized that he was just too full from the breakfast to deal with it. A couple of nights I'd find the dinner sitting at his computer, like he brought it home and you picked at it a little bit more. But so that's how that's gone for him.
So how are you working this all in with the kids as well? Are the kids kind of moving this way, or is it just kind of regular meals for them?
It's a little bit of both. I told them if they want regular meals, it's going to have to be just cookie sheet meals, like the kind of stuff you take out of the freezer and put on. And I asked them what they wanted for that, and they gave me a little list. I have a 17-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 21-year-old. The 21-year-old is autistic nonverbal, so he's kind of the same mental age as the 4-year-old. So they kind of are together in most things. And then the 17 and the 12-year-old are more together in most things. The 17 and 12-year-old go to their dad's 3 days a week for dinner too. So that's nice for them. But the 12-year-old is very interested in this, and he's trying to transfer over to carnivore. He's very interested. In the morning, when I make David his breakfast, I make extra bacon and extra sausage, and the boys will choose between bacon or sausage or both. My 17-year-old takes both, and then the other two go the other ways. Um, I cook Will for his school because I homeschool my three middles, or my three littles. Um, but Will goes to a special needs school. And so I cook him a couple of hamburgers and he takes those to school. I make him one of those cakes I was telling you about earlier with the cassava. That's actually on my page too if people want to see the recipe. But I make those cakes for Will, and then I give him a little applesauce. So that's his lunch for school. He comes home and he eats sausage too. That's his after school snack. So they're really like on board, but I'm not enforcing it type of thing. So like if I make an all carnivore meal, they're totally fine with it. If they have tacos, they're totally fine with that. So it's been really easy. They've been easy to integrate. And like I said, my 12-year-old's actually he's having a harder time because he can't get integrated into it. He wants to do it more than the rest of the kids.
It's very good to hear that he's so eager about it, right?
Yeah, he's an interesting child. He really is. He's ever since he was in my stomach, I could tell he was special and different the way his mind worked. Like he's an old soul. Like I could feel it in utero. This is an old soul. So he's a pretty cool guy. But yeah, he really he likes studying and learning about different things, and he just really likes the clarity it gives his brain. Same as me.
Nice. So, where is this going for you? Is this like a permanent thing now?
No doubt. I'm a baker. I work at 4 in the morning in a bakery with sheets and sheets of donuts, like all over the place. And maybe the first week, I was like, oh, I really want to pop one of those in my mouth. I also always thought that I was a compulsive overeater. But since I started doing this, I might as well be working in a plastic factory. I might as well be working somewhere where they make that little food for kids with their little grocery carts because it doesn't look like food to me at all. I was just thinking about that today, how I'm like sitting there dipping these donuts in the chocolate, getting them all up, and it like occurred to me. I was like, I'm preparing this for people to eat. This is weird, because it doesn't seem like food to me anymore at all. So that's been having the food around isn't really a bother. Is that the question you asked?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an interesting point because, so I understand the feeling of, like, there's suddenly this break, right? So that you don't have any attachment to it anymore, you know? It's like being a chain smoker and you give up for a while and you've got that addiction for maybe, you know, a few weeks, a few months where you still want to pick up a cigarette, but then there's a point where it just stops and it's like,
Yeah,
"Okay, I'm free of this now."
yeah.
And I understand that feeling. I'm just surprised that you got over it so quickly.
Well, I think it's because I've spent 30 years trying to get my food addictions under control and trying to get beyond this state where I mean, whether you believe in Darwin or Jesus, you've got to believe that we were designed better than this. And living on our plan B, we've been living on our backup plan for 10,000 years. And so I've been trying to figure out why on earth eating normal food do we feel so terrible? It's this. So I've been researching it for, like I said, almost 30 years, trying to figure out this is stupid. We shouldn't be feeling bad so fast. And a lot of my friends are like, "Oh, you're so lucky you're healthy." And I'm like, "It's not luck. I've been studying this for decades." So, yeah, I think that the reason that I was able to adapt to it so quickly is because oxalates were already not a problem. That was nothing in my life. You couldn't there was no there's no amount of cheese that will make me eat broccoli. It just won't happen. So things like that worked out.
Yeah. I really like how you talk about, for the 10,000 last 10,000 years, we've been on plan B. I think
Yeah.
that is, really, it really hits home. And
Mhm,
it's really like, yeah, we just accept that, oh, well, I guess for me, I lost the lottery, and I put up with feeling this bad my whole life,
mhm.
realizing it's food, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the I came up with the plan B thing because I was watching I love Dr. Berry, don't get me wrong, but he was saying, women's weight loss is gonna stall because of hormones and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, again, whether you believe in Jesus or Darwin, my hormones shouldn't make me be a big disaster and all the men are just fine. There's obviously something wrong not feeding my body to do what I'm supposed to do. I mean, technically, I have the harder job. Why would we make me have the terrible, stupid hormones that can't do anything right? Obviously, my hormones weren't being fed properly on this garbage that we invented 10,000 years ago and just kept making it. So, and I actually do have proof that the hormones don't matter, because I just happened to be at the start of my cycle, right when I started this, and I continued to lose weight daily, 6 ounces a day throughout the part of my cycle where it's supposed to stall and mess up and gain weight and make you eat chocolate and all that. There was nothing. I kept losing 6 ounces a day, no problem.
It's really interesting to hear this kind of thing as well, because again, it's more kind of evidence that we shouldn't be feeling this way. We shouldn't be walking around like a patched up car, you know? We we should just be feeling good as the default, right?
Yeah. It's
Mm.
kind of funny at work. I'm the oldest person at my job. And these young girls, in their early 30s and mid 20s, they'll, like the weather changed one day and this girl was like, "Oh, I feel like a 50-year-old woman, my knees hurt so bad." And I was like, "The hell you do? I feel great." they were they were like, "Oh, shut up, Becky." But another girl, "Oh, my back, I feel like a 50-year-old woman." I was like, "No, you don't." I was like, "Look at my back." So I mess with them all the time. Oh, that generation, they've just the garbage, like, in the 70s, the garbage was new. Like all the processed stuff was new. Most of the stuff we have in the supermarket now didn't exist when even you and I were kids. My dad, he's a Vietnam vet, and he remembers, you know, it was like maybe 2 or 3 years before I was born, when he first started eating Doritos, and he was like, "Man, these I couldn't stop eating them," and that's new stuff. It wasn't around, and then it was like a special treat for our generation. Well, this next generation was raised on it. They have Doritos every day, they have Mountain Dew every day, and so that's why they feel so terrible, is that they were just absolutely raised on this processed diet. And they are saying that the generation, the alphas or whatever they call them, are coming in to their adulthood like old men and old women. They're just so sore and tired and all on meds.
Yeah.
So
I think the mental health part of it is a really gonna be a really big deal, I think.
yeah, it is.
I was interested, you talked about your colleagues. Do they know about your way of eating now, and how do they react to it?
I have two of them seem pretty interested. I had one asking me, about the if it, the keto flu type stuff and the transition, if it was bad. Um, And then I had another one. Oh, I had my gallbladder out. And so I had a little conversation with her about how, when you have your gallbladder out, if you just eat smaller meals at first, your bile will catch up that way because it still comes out through your liver. It's just not going to go through your gallbladder anymore. So you just have to do it lower and slower, basically. So and that I think that interested her more too. But that's about the interest I've gotten so far.
Okay, but there's no one there going, "Oh my goodness, you're gonna kill yourself," or anything like that?
No, no, my colleagues are so sweet. They are ego boosters for me for sure. I've had a lot of backlash in the past, and I really do think that this job that I'm at right now was set for me at this time, because they are just like, "You're so smart, you know so much," and it fills my heart with joy when they say it, because I've worked so hard trying to learn it, and I've been dismissed for so many decades. That it's exciting to me that they're so open minded.
Oh, that's nice.
It is
And
nice.
I think it's good to be talking about it like that as well. Just, obviously not talking to pressure people, but the way you're able to talk to them about it is good, right? Because whether they're actually interested now or not, it's planting little seeds so that at some point they might go, maybe this would work for me.
Yeah. Yep. I love how we use planting seeds. Planting grass seeds for the cows, only grass seeds for the cows.
Yeah.
No more cropping.
Yeah. So if one of your colleagues was to ask you, look, how do I get started? I'm going to give this a good try. What would you recommend they do, for how long to try it, that kind of thing?
Well, since we work where we work, and I know that they eat like the donuts and the breakfast sandwiches and things like that, and they also drink we make these energy drinks with like Red Bull, and they call them the Sunrise and stuff like that. It's like the anxiety panic attack is what they should call them. But The since they eat all of those types of things, from my perspective, from what I've done in the past, I would tell them, if you want to get off the sugar and you want to get off the carbs, go to the grocery store and buy whatever fruit you love the most. Buy a lot of it. And every time you want the carbs or the sugar, eat that. And then plan your meat meals. Eat your meat meals, eat and for some reason for me that has always taken me right off of carbs. And I had no trouble transitioning off of carbs when I fruit loaded. But I wouldn't suggest doing that if you've ever had like an aversion to fruits. Like I don't know how I'd suggest it to somebody who's had aversions to fruits or, breaks out with fruits. But for me, fruit loading was the best way to trickle off of the carbs.
Ah, and then, I guess, is the idea then that you're just as you're eating more carnivore style food, that you can reduce your reliance on the fruit?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because usually it only takes me about a week to just wholly break the whole thing. I don't get any headaches. I don't get any sugar cravings, anything like that. About a weekend, I'm like, all right, I'm just eating this now. And it's always worked for me to get off the carbs when after Christmas and things like that,
Mm.
after Christmas or babies.
So, Rebecca, how can people reach out to you online? How can they find you? Have you got a YouTube channel or other social media?
I do have a YouTube channel. It's the Enchanted Baker, at Enchanted Baker. It's just my name, Rebecca Allen, is the YouTube channel. And that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. I'm getting some of those little cutesy recipes for the kids down so that you can help transfer them over. And then I'm just working more on explaining how weight loss for women works differently than for men. So those are my two like thingies in my in my videos.
Nice. Well, I'll link to it in the show notes.
All
And
right.
Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.